This story is from the Favorite Fairy Tales Told in Scotland, retold by Virginia Haviland, illustrated by Andrea Shine. The first story is The Page Boy and the Silver Goblet. There was once a little page boy who was in service at a great castle in Scotland. He was a good-natured lad and performed his duties willingly and well. Everyone liked him, from the grand laird whom he served, the fat old steward whose errands he ran. The castle stood on the edge of a high cliff overlooking the sea. The castle walls were very thick, but on one side of them a special little door had been cut. The door opened on a narrow flight of steps that led down to the face of the cliff to the shore. Anyone who liked could go down there on pleasant summer days to bathe in the shimmering sea. On the other side of the castle, gardens and pleasure grounds opened onto a long stretch of moor. This moorland, covered with purple heather, met in the distance a range of stony hills. The little page boy liked to run out to the moor when his work was done, for here he could catch butterflies and look for bird nests when it was nesting time. The old steward himself was glad to have the lad play there. But before the boy went out, the old man always warned him, "Now mind my words, laddie, and keep far away from the fairy knowe, for you cannot trust the little folk." The knowe was a rocky green hillock which stood on the moor not 20 yards from the garden gate. People said it was the home of fairies, and everyone knew that fairies would punish any rash mortal who came too near them. Because of this, the country folk would even walk a good half-mile out of their way, even in daylight, to avoid going near the fairy knowe. At night, they would hardly step on the moor, for then, as everyone knows, the fairies come abroad in the darkness, and they leave the door of their dwelling open so that an unlucky mortal who does not take care may find himself inside. Now, the little page boy, instead of being frightened of fairies, was anxious to see them. He wanted to visit their home, just to find out what it was like. One night, when everyone was asleep, he crept out of the castle by the little side door, and he stole down the stone steps along the shore, up on the moor, and he went straight to the fairy knowe. To his delight, he found that what everyone said was true. The top of the rocky knowe was tipped up, and from this opening rays of light streamed out. His heart beat as fast as he could with excitement. Gathering his courage, he stooped down and slipped inside the knowe. He found himself in a large room lit by hundreds of tiny candles. Around a polished table sat scores of little people. They were dressed in green and yellow and pink and blue, lilac and scarlet, all the colors possible. The page boy stood in a dark corner watching, and in wonder a busy scene of feasting. How strange that here, within sight of the castle, all these tiny beings were living their lives unknown to men. Suddenly, someone gave an order. "Fetch the cup!" cried a shrill voice. Instantly, 2 fairy pages in a scarlet clothing darted from the table to the tiny cupboard on the rock. They returned, staggering under the weight of a beautiful silver cup. Richly embossed it was, and lined with shining gold. Up to the middle of the table they lifted the cup. Then, with a clapping of their hands and shouts of joy, all the fairies began in turn to drink from it. Also, the page boy could see from where he stood that although no one poured the wine into the goblet, it was always full. Also, he saw that the drink was not always the same kind. Each fairy, when he grasped the goblet's stem, wished for the drink he loved the best, and lo, in a moment the cup became full. "It would be a fine thing if I could show that cup at the castle," thought the page boy. "No one will believe that I've been here unless I have something to show for it." He bided his time and watched. Presently the fairies noticed the page boy. Instead of being angry at him for entering their dwelling, as he had expected they would be, they seemed pleased to see him. They even invited him to a seat at their feast. Later, however, they became rude. They jeered at him for being content to serve mere mortals, and told him that they saw everything that went on in the castle. They made fun of the fat old steward, whom the page boy loved with all his heart. They laughed at the castle food, saying that it was fit only for animals. When the scarlet-clad pages set a fresh dainty on the table, the fairies pushed the dish across the boy and said, "Taste this, for you cannot eat such things at the castle." At last, the page boy could stand their teasing no longer. Besides, he knew that if he wanted to secure the cup, he must lose no time. Suddenly, he stood up. Tightly, he grasped the stem of the silver goblet. "I'll drink to you all in water," he cried. Instantly, the ruby wine was turned to clear, cold water. He raised the cup to his lips, but he did not drink from it. With a sudden jerk, he threw the water over the candles. Instantly, the room was in darkness. Clasping the precious cup in his arms, he sprang to the opening of the knowe, where he could see the stars glimmering. Soon the page boy was speeding over the wet, dew-spangled moor, and the whole troop of fairies at his heels. They were wild with rage and uttered shrill shouted fury. The page boy knew that, well, if they should overtake him, he would have no mercy at their hands. His heart began to sink, for fleet of foot though he was no match for the little folk. They gained on him steadily. All seemed lost until a strange voice sounded in the darkness. "If thou wouldst gain the castle door, keep to the black stones on the shore." It was the sound of a poor mortal who had been taken by the fairies and who did not want a like fate to befall the brave page boy. This made the page boy remember a saying that he had heard: "He who walks on wet sands, which the waves have washed, the fairies cannot touch." The page boy turned and dashed, panting down the shore. At first, his feet sank in the dry sand. His breath came in little gasps, and he felt as if he must give up his struggle. But he pushed on, and at last, just as the first of the fairies was about to lay hands on him, he made a long jump. He landed on wet sand from which the waves had just receded, and he knew that he was safe. The little folk could not go one step farther. They had to remain on the dry sand, shrieking cries of rage and disappointment. The triumphant page boy ran safely along the shore with the precious cup in his arms. He climbed lightly up the steps in the rock and disappeared through the little door. For many years, long after the page boy had grown up and became a stately steward who trained other page boys, the beautiful cup remained in the castle. It was a witness to his adventure in outwitting the fairies. The end.